February 13th. MUSD meeting order at 5:01. We have nothing to report out of closed session. Call roll, please.
Student trustee Kinsland is sorry he cannot attend this evening. He is improving at the Improv. Trustee Bloyd.
Here.
Trustee Griffin.
Here.
Trustee Schaefer.
Present.
Trustee Morton.
Here.
Trustee Ong.
Here. As I said, nothing to report out of closed. We need to approve or any changes to this agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you.
Trustee Bloyd.
Yes.
Trustee Griffin.
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer.
Yes.
Trustee Morton.
Yes.
Trustee Ong.
Yes. Agenda, consent agenda, item 5. We have a move to approve.
There's an item, just in one of the documents, there's an item that I'm being reimbursed for some basketball uniforms that I paid for. I still feel like I can vote to approve the entire consent agenda, but just want to disclose that.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any objections, leaving that as is? Thank you, Emily. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay. Go ahead.
Trustee Bloyd.
Yes.
Trustee Griffin.
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer.
Yes.
Trustee Morton.
Yes.
Trustee Ong.
Yes. Okay. Right up to reports. Canute is not with us. He didn't give anything in absentia.
He had mentioned it, but I think that it just got away from him. He's a
Okay.
busy guy these days.
Okay. Tobin.
All right, to share a sampling of goings on around campus recently. As Aaron said, an improv show is going on tonight. We had a show last night. I watched it from the comfort of my living room via KAKX live streaming services, and it was quite enjoyable, really fun, amazing group of students. So that is going on, as is basketball right now. JV boys are beating Round Valley, and we will have the varsity girls and boys senior nights happening very shortly here. So I'll be popping down there for that, and that's going on right now in the gym. Chinese New Year parade was supposed to be today. Did not happen as it was storming outside, but in preparation for the event, we fixed up our dragon head, which you can see the pictures on the left and the right, this somewhat beat up dragon head. It now has eyelashes and eyebrows and a fresh coat of paint, and it's been completely restored by Bella and Mr. Rain. So we had a lot of fun getting ready for the parade, and we're ready for the next time it runs. Just thought I'd share that.
Are you going to reschedule, or is it just done?
I don't know, Kim. Are they? No. It's you get one shot to do it. So we are ready next year. The dragon. Marcy was going to sew up some silks because we lost those in the move in the construction. So we're all ready for next year. This is a club that I run, Vex Robotics. They are going on March 1st to Region 1 Championships, which is going to be fun for them. You can see their little robot there. It has to pick up those green goals and stack rings on the stakes and drive them around and try to score them in different places. So they have a robot that can do that, both driver controlled and autonomously on its own. This was a nice sharing of talent between the sites that happened recently. We have some talented staff members. You can see Megan Miller, our resource specialist, on the stand-up bass, and on this lower picture here in the top hat, Profe, our Spanish teacher, playing, I don't know if that's a mandolin, or I think it's a mandolin. He plays banjo and other instruments. So they made some music for the K-8 students. Just a sort of periodic check-in on chronic absenteeism. It has taken a turn for the worse. Probably a combination of these things listed here, kind of anecdotally. A mix of illness, just the regular, family trips, anxiety, some students just school refusal. But that number is back up, so that is going the wrong direction.
What is school refusal?
A student just refusing to go to school.
Oh,
Yeah,
But couldn't that be from anxiety?
it's hard to say. It could be, could be all sorts of things. Yeah, that's fairly rare, but some of our worst cases, that might be an explanation. Yeah.
Just
And-
with regards to, if there's family travel but they do independent study, that doesn't go against absenteeism.
It does not, but they have to complete all their work, or it does. So they might be gone for 10 days and do 70% of the work, and there's 3 days right there, and add on an illness here and there, and whatever, some appointment or something. It's any absence, will count against you. So it all adds up, and we have had a lot more travels similar to what we had a couple of years after coming back in person, where people are making up. Seems like we had a lot of people doing a lot of different travel, so that is part of it, not the only part. We are in the process of designing our ethnic studies course, and we are starting to hone in on kind of what our goal is for this. We had a focus group recently, and this is, of course, a state graduation requirement, starting with the current 7th graders, class of 2030. And we are looking to offset this against our college and career class life choices freshman year, so they would do a semester of ethnic studies and a semester of their college and career. One thing, you can click forward one. So we had a focus group, we had community members come in, we had tribal members, we had students representing our various demographics, and we did some activities, presented some information, got some feedback, and it was pretty clear that, and I think this is really where we were headed with the course anyways, the curriculum framework goes through a number of, the history, elevating the stories of marginalized groups, but I think ultimately where the class will head toward is more of a interpersonal identity, exploring identity, looking at empathy, looking at confronting issues of racism, things like that. So the feedback that we got from the group, those were like the most important things to them. It didn't have to do with the history of, but that will get pulled in. So since they don't have social science freshman year, this is an opportunity to give them some of the tools of social science in their freshman year. Then they will be able to go deeper into that in their U.S. World and Civics classes. But it was a really great kind of kickoff to that. We had about 20 plus people in this focus group participating. So we got some good feedback and good momentum too. I think the students really want to run with it and create more of a presence on campus of multicultural presence, activities, celebrations. All right.
Is there any way the federal government can impinge on that kind of stuff in California, or are we fairly well protected?
I think we're pretty insulated, because it's a California state law, but it is, antithetical to
There is state
what's
law.
going on at the federal level.
Yeah.
well, I think that, the threat that various people in the administration seem to be making is that they'll cut Title I, Title II, all federal monies to states that don't support the regime change in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, Florida makes up their own rules, and no one took their money away. So, we'll see. Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, Toby.
Thank you.
Jason? Yep.
Yeah, Marshall, I don't know how you're in 3 places at once here. We have a lot going on, improv and basketball, and so thanks for your crew for doing it all. So speaking of the improv show, we were forced to rent stage lighting. So because the lighting project isn't done, and it's not going to be done for a while actually. So they're having trouble finding the right lights, and it's going to be no further cost to the district, but it's going to be a few more months before that project's finished. But we'll have a nice lighting system when it's done. Otherwise, we have the solar kickoff meeting that happened Tuesday, and they're going to get started with work next week during the break, doing the site work. So that's exciting to get that going.
Is that the geotechnical study?
Yeah.
Yeah, underground locating.
And then there's been a little movement on the MCN sale to Fort Bragg. We're very close to a purchase agreement for signature, and then Fort Bragg visited MCN today and did their their due diligence about the assets that will be included in the sale. So that went well as far as I know. So they've done their financial part and then their physical asset part. So I explained that if this is going to happen, we really need it to happen by June 30th. All of the MCN employees will be receiving layoff notices next month. So that's a necessary thing. If something happens and this falls through, we can always rescind them, but we need to do that by March 15th. And then some exciting work at the bus barn. We have everything set to go, and now the electrical contractor is there, now hooking up our, going from the pole to our switchgear, and we should have a full bus charging system probably within a week or so. That's very exciting. And then Kim and I met with a community member who has a proposal to get music back in the schools. The plan at this point is to start next fall and have a dedicated community member in the K through 5 classrooms, and each classroom for a weekly lesson for the entire year, with a concert at the end of the year, possibly in the middle of the year. We've asked Muse for funding, and it looks promising, and we're just hoping that they come through with that funding, and I'll have more to report once that's final. But very exciting that we're going to be able to at least give kids a foundation in those younger grades, and then we can build on it in the future, hopefully. So that's about it.
Question is improv going to be on YouTube?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jason? Comments? All right, thank you, Jason. MTA.
Hello again. I forgot my glasses this time, so I'm going to do my best to keep track on here. So I do not have another staff kind of showcase that I was hoping to do, and so we kind of switched it up. And this last week we talked about just giving some shout outs at our general meeting, and so I just wanted to share a few of those ones. I started off with AE week prep at the high school and how they do it, and the spoiler alert is they just do. I'm in awe of it. I still don't understand how it all comes together, and it's just amazing, and I want to make sure and acknowledge those teachers for pulling that off. And then on talking about the trips, the high school team took a trip down to Santa Rosa Junior College. That was Liz and Megan Miller, our special ed teacher at the high school. They took 22 students. I thought that was incredible. It was a rainy day, but the clouds parted just in time. They also noted that accommodations were made for a former student of mine that's up here with mobility issues. A wheelchair was provided, making sure that happens for everybody that wanted to participate. And so I really appreciate all the work that was into that. They got pummeled on the way home with rain, and everybody was safe and had a great time. My daughter went on that trip as well, who's deciding whether or not college is for her or not. And I just appreciate that these things are made available. Marshall Brown, again, he was recognized for his Monday afternoon radio club shows. So he's hosting live music and broadcasting in real time, which is a super big feat. And then also The Big Show, which is featuring massive amounts of talented high school students. I was completely blown away, giving them that forum to express their creativity and passion. That was amazing. And like Jason said, tackling all these different things that are going on at one time. Speaking of Liz, we're going to go back to her. She was recognized for her help organizing the concessions for the improv show. I saw that last night. My daughter volunteered, and I think they made several $100s, and those money that goes right back to the students. And I'm just, again, blown away by that. Canute did an excellent job. He's down there right now, as did the other students. And then one of my former students was directing the lights and audio, set up perfectly by Marshall, and I got pulled in to dim the lights, so the student became the teacher, and I didn't do it fast enough, and he let me know that for the next time, and it was really cool. I loved it. And then I saw Emily there as well, and it just was a family affair. I love that. Let's see, John Moran acknowledged Derek Hutchinson for inviting his class to come in and climb the rock wall while they were on a walking field trip to the headlands, and what an impact that had on his kids. At the elementary school, we have our younger kids in the elementary that are struggling with behaviors, so we just want to acknowledge our elementary team. They're trying multiple ways to show up and support them. Kim has, met with them because we have a group of teachers that just, they're stressed because they want to make this work for kids. Nobody gets left behind, and brought us, the most loving way. And it's incredible what they're doing. And so I highlighted our elementary teachers do not give up on their students, and it's such an amazing thing to see. We also want to acknowledge Megan Perry for stepping up to cover in for another MUTA member that's out on medical leave. And anybody who knows Megan knows she's passionate for helping others, and she's getting in that right headspace, and they're making it work, and it's a beautiful thing. At the middle school, we want to acknowledge Anna Yenes. She's pulling off a dance for our middle schoolers. This will be the first one this year. It was something that was missing. Our students were vocal, and so they're being heard. I talked with Anna yesterday, and she was like, I don't really know what we're doing. I assume she's done one before, but she hasn't. And we assured her, we're like, we will pull this off. And it's just, there will be volunteers. And again, every student will be able to enjoy that night, which is really cool. And then Marshall again for setting up the for the dance the day before, because he has to leave town. And I found that out, and somebody else put that out there. So, and of course his amazing student crew that show up time and time after again and just do a brilliant job. I also want to acknowledge Sage Anderson. Somebody put her out there because she's putting together some incredible field trips for our students. One coming up is going to be in Willits for CAL FIRE, and the rumor has it there will be fire, so students are excited that they may get to light things on fire and see what a controlled burn looks and feels like, so there's a lot of buzz going around. And then she also has organized another overnight 8th grade field trip, which last year was the first one that we've been able to bounce back and take care of that, and it was a lot of fun. And then also, lastly, Megan Perry and Amy Frederick for all their hard work organizing, preparing, scheduling SST meetings to address the evolving individual needs and figuring out next steps. We had an IEP the other day that was a part of that process, and it really was a beautiful thing. So we also want to acknowledge the admin team, appreciate them for being responsive and receptive. Tobin met recently with several MUTA members to discuss something that was kind of a gray area. And we want it noted that teachers reported they felt seen, they felt heard, and it was an overall positive experience. So it was a good reminder of the power of our meaningful dialogue. We also, at our general meeting, we reviewed the process of addressing areas of concern during the general meeting, and so our way of committing to that improved communication with admin so things aren't festering and turning adversarial, which kind of felt like it did the last couple of years, and it really was a positive experience. So for the group that had met. And then lastly, I have the email sent on behalf of the negotiation team. Hopefully you got it. So requesting board members' presence at the negotiation meeting on Friday, which is tomorrow. It was noted we truly value your ideas, your knowledge and experience. And then one of the members had noted that it's the IBB method, the interest-based bargaining, and important that the shareholders are there. So, one of the things we talked about was the intimacies of what's happening from different perspectives, and we realize that goes both ways. And so we appreciate that support. Hope we will see one of you on Friday. And sorry, I said lastly, and I kind of lied. We also had a discussion supporting our immigrant students, our LGBTQ students and families and staff as well. And we realized that, for the board, for the school district, there's a lot at stake there. You're in a precarious position, and so we want to make sure we step up on our end with possible workshops to make sure we're doing everything we can and that our families know that that we'll stand up for them and make sure that they feel safe and supported. So, and we're just exploring different avenues of what that may look or feel like. So, that was a lot. Did anybody have any questions? I swear I wasn't going to talk fast, but I didn't do a good job. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Josh.
6:30, continuing, anyone from CMIS?
Don't see anyone.
No. Okay, trustee reports. Start down there. Yeah, anything? No? Emily?
Not tonight, thanks.
No?
No?
Michael?
Nope.
Okay, well, I'll just chime in. I did sit in on the kickoff meeting for the photovoltaic project, and my initial feedback is that we seem to be dealing with a competent team, and time will tell, of course, but I'm looking forward to keeping this moving and us working collaboratively to get this, keep this moving as quickly as possible so we can meet our NEMA connection deadline. That's all I have. All right.
When's groundbreaking on that supposedly?
Well, next week they're going to do their geotech, so they'll be doing, it's technically groundbreaking, but it's just they'll be doing those small holes for drilling, not until they've done their, they're also going to start with their, they have to call in for underground utility location, and then also Jason's going to get as-builts for them because they need to look at our own, things that we own that service doesn't. So I think it was next week to start that, and then the following week, wasn't there actually going to be doing
Yeah,
drilling?
25th and 26th is the drilling.
But as far as main construction, it's quite a bit still. But this is the first step so that they can finalize then their design that goes into DSA. So they know what the soils, because I think that's kind of the big unknown for these is, what do those holes look like? How deep they have to go? How does that meet the wind resistance, et cetera? They did send an updated schedule that if you want Jason to share with all of us. They sent that just out. I think Jason sent that as a follow-up right after the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep.
And is DSA any quicker than like this?
I believe they have a expedited category for these types of projects. I don't know how.
Call it over the table or something like that.
I don't think it's quite
Over the counter.
table.
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite like that, but I do.
But we're
believe
hoping we'll fall within that.
Yeah. Yeah. 5:30. Well, yeah, I guess. Dawn, are you out there? You with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we're ready for you. 8.1.
All righty, great. It should be fairly quick. We're finally wrapping up the project, and I'll be leaving you guys at some point here soon. I thought this month would be it, but we're still trying to close out with TSA and QKA, and but the brunt of the work has been completed. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me start with the first page of financials. I have met with Lathrop as of Monday, Tuesday this week. So what you see in front of you hasn't really reflected that, but nothing's really changed. We've settled on final costs for this, that, and things have added. I still believe we're going to have from phase 2 about $1 million remaining, but I caution you that that doesn't count other expenses. Like I know some phase 3 expenses have already started. I'm unaware of, some CEQA expenses and other things that were not part of phase 2. So I think the $1 million probably by now is probably whittled away to maybe 800 or 750 up. But I've had some initial discussions with Meg this week too. So trying to get our arms about what's left of the bond. But that's no big surprises. It's just good to get the finances wrapped up and get it submitted to DSA for their final closure and QK for their final closure. So that's been kind of the thrust this last week, or this week, I should say. Well, we're going, the next page. As far as work out there, they've completed their work. They're pretty much complete with punch lists as well. There had been some owner requested modifications, like some door hardware that was installed per spec, but not how we really want it. So we made some modifications. They're expected to come out next week while you guys are out on break and do that last bit of hardware modifications. There's a couple windows in the room you're in right now from phase one that's kind of pitted that we're replacing. That's going to happen next week. And a couple other incidental things are going to happen next week. So I hope we will be complete. The inspector needs to walk through and make sure doors pressures are correct now that we have a testing the balance completed. He was leaning on the contractor because we need proper access to mechanical units to service them in the attics, and we're getting that sorted out, and that's going to happen next week as well. Some of it was in contract, some of it wasn't, but it's a code requirement, so we've been shaking that out, and that's expected to happen next week too. So, in theory, we'll be done next week, and then we'll clear up the financials between then and before I see you for the last time next month. What else we have here? That's pretty much what I have. It's pretty straightforward. Now I'm just glad that we're going to be buttoning things up and you guys can move forward with phase 3. It's exciting that I hear that you got power for bus charging. I'm anxious to take a drive by and see what that looks like at some point, because I do kind of some of that stuff too, and that you're moving forward with the solar as well. So, also we got as-built drawings for phase 2. I've shared at least electronically with Jason. I'll give him a thumb drive next time I see him, and kind of turn over the reins. So with that, I'm wide open for any questions.
Anyone out there? No? Okay, thank you, Don.
All right, thank you.
Hold on.
No, it's not really him. Overall, I would really like it if maybe sometime this spring, when it's light late, we could just do a final tour and see everything in its completed form.
That sounds like a great idea. All right, yeah, you're released. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. In fact, Tobin and I are going to do that after next week as well.
Okay.
Do one final walkthrough, and I'm on my way to Fort Bragg one of these days.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see when we schedule that, if we can coordinate it with when you're on the coast for something else, maybe you can participate.
Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's jump back. Oh, that's right on time. Item 7, parent community comment, non-agendized items. Is there anyone, Aaron, out there?
I don't see anyone.
Anyone else out here? No? Okay. 8.2, phase 3.
So I don't have too much to update here. It's just 3 weeks ago that we met, so he's continuing. Ruben, our phase 3 construction worker, is finishing up at the comm school when the weather's good and moving on to other projects.
We have a lot of work to get on the soccer field.
Oh yeah, that's phase 3 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we've been some concerns that it's not quite how we were hoping it was. Emily, have you had a chance to look at it since we spoke?
Went down there the other day when it was half rolled, and the rolling has helped some.
You still have concerns, do you think?
Yeah, we'll see. I think there's a little more work to do this spring on it to get it up to snuff. But yeah.
Ultimately, Emily was instrumental in coming up with and we had a consultant come in and worked up a detailed job description, and I think they didn't quite follow it, and so we ended up with quite a bit of lumps that I didn't have an intimate knowledge of the field prior, but I think it's agreed that it's not quite how we were hoping. They've been working on addressing it, and the what are those birds called?
The geese.
Those geese have proven quite problematic as well, because
Eating old seed for the
what's
And
that?
just kind of digging into it a little.
Well, the sod isn't well established. They're digging around in it, making holes, and then the rain's getting on that, and then the broadleaves are taking root. it's sort of a spiraling issue as well.
What about the Gophers?
Well, they haven't proven quite as much of a problem yet, but they'll be back.
There's no wood in here to knock on.
They will certainly be back. Hopefully Kiva will be back soon too, and he can continue killing them for us. So that'll be to be continued, I think, on that item. Get it where we want it. Any other pieces you want to touch on?
Is there a expectation of when the work in the locker rooms will be finished?
I don't know.
No, not currently.
Okay.
No.
I did talk to MCRPD the other day about the old tennis court in need of renovation, and that that's something they're very interested in to support their programs. They're looking at expanding their ability to offer programs up and down the coast, and view Mendocino as sort of the center of that. And obviously we have a lot of the facilities in Mendocino. And so they're looking to get a grant to reconstruct that tennis court. So
Pickleball courts, or is?
what we talked about was a multi-sport court that would be tennis, pickleball, basketball, and soccer. So futsal, small, 5v5. So you could do any of them. It'd be sort of
So
multi-ability.
it'd be what kind of surface?
Probably either a tennis surface and asphalt with acrylic paint coating, or potentially they have these new sort of tile-based surfaces you can put down
And that's safe for football, soccer?
for soccer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an indoor soccer type of a thing. A court, yeah, sport
How
court.
extensive? They're thinking like tear out there or go over the top of it?
We'd have to look at that foundation and see if it's still good. Yeah,
Oh, it
it's
sounds
very
like
early
it's
still.
going to be larger than the current
Not
covered
necessarily.
surface,
No.
no? Okay.
Yeah, it's not a
We're talking
professional soccer.
4v4, 5v4. It's
Yeah,
futsal.
soccer.
It's small. It's done in the basketball gym usually.
I mean, I'd be surprised if it passes a drainage test, that current court.
Yeah, it might need some work on that. So it's nice to have a partner on it. We're hoping to get a grant to support it, and if not, we might end up using some Phase 3 funds as well. But I'm glad to
Great.
have a partner who's excited about it as
Yeah,
well.
that's great. I'm glad you took that on. Our cord, at least, being a point
Well,
person.
I was, just anecdotally, reading an article about pickleball in the latest real estate magazine, and apparently pickleball on the coast started in our high school tennis court, that I never knew that we had people using it for that purpose. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's apparently gotten quite popular.
Yep.
Anything else for that item? No? Comments? No? All right, we'll move along. 8.3, LCAP, mid-year review.
All right. I guess, Aaron, I need to be able to share my screen. Please. All right, I know Meg is online. So I guess I'll start off with my part of it, and then Meg can do the budget update for parents. So this is, your screen is gone, but I'm not sure if that's necessary, if everybody has. It looks like everybody has a screen in front of them.
Kim doesn't.
Well, I know, but.
You've seen it all before.
What are we looking at, the
LCAP.
mid-year update? Is that
Yes.
the-
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen, so
Oh, okay.
hopefully,
Yep, that's the one.
you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, it's up on Zoom.
Okay.
You could probably start, Jason,
All
while
right.
they're figuring that part out, since it's just for the folks
All
in
right,
the room.
so on the left-hand column, we have the metric that we're measuring. Remember, this is a 3-year LCAP. We're in the first year, so we had some baseline data to begin with. The middle column is what we had at the end of the year for the most part, and then on the right side is the most up-to-date data we have. So So the first goal has to do with English learners, and we are anticipating that 3 students will be reclassified in 2024-25, and then I'll be adding all of the scores in as we get them next year. Still no EL students meeting the standard for math or language arts. We only had, I believe, 8 students take the test.
So do I read the numbers right, that we have the same number of new English learner students as we do people who were reclassified, so our numbers are staying somewhat the same?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, roughly 13, 14, depending who moves in and out. Goal 2 is improving student outcomes for socioeconomically disadvantaged students, for chronic absenteeism and proficiency on the standardized tests. The chronic absenteeism is down quite a bit from 22-23. Last year it was 50% in 22-23, down to 33% last year, and then to date this year it's 26%. So that's a great improvement. And then you can see that we did a little better on the standardized testing as well.
Do we have current numbers on and how they've changed on the number of students who are classified as economically disadvantaged?
No, I don't. What the threshold is? Or?
Right. No. What we. I mean, I think we're above 60%.
Yeah, we are.
And so did we? I know that the 23-24 was a big increase over 22-23. Are we finding that 24-25 is similarly bigger, or is it holding the same?
Meg, do you happen to have that number? Our number of unduplicated students, the percentage?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm going to do I have to update the calculator for second interim. So I'll have more current numbers next month with the second interim report. It's okay to report it then?
That's fine.
Okay.
Make sure we're keeping track of that.
Yeah.
Just improve student outcomes for all students. So you'll see a lot of data on this one. Your version online that you have is a little different than this one, because I did receive 4 of the data points. So the percentage of 12th graders completing A through G requirements is 53% for 23-24. The percentage of 12th grade students completing a CTE pathway was 81% in 23-24. And then the percentage of students achieving a score of a 3 or better on the AP tests last year was 63%. And then all the way down there at the bottom, your document is not updated, but it says the percentage of 12th graders completing a CTE pathway and A through G requirements is 41%. That they did both.
So what was that figure on the percentage of students who got a 3 or better on their AP tests?
Those are students who took the AP, students who took an AP test.
Right. And what was the figure for
63, sorry, 63%.
So same percentage, even.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says note this is all students. Should be all students who took an AP test?
It's all students who took an AP test. Yeah. Because it used to be just 12th graders, so that. It used to say percentage of 12th grade students, so I could say, I could fix that to be a little more clear. All right, then the last goal is improve school climate. So we're gonna do the California Healthy Kids Survey this year. I will likely give this survey again anyway, though, because I think it's just a quick snapshot of how parents feel for the engagement there, or for their feelings. And then we have the chronic absenteeism. We're at 26% last time I looked, which was last week. And then something that is just in my opinion, very impressive is our suspension rates. Back when I started 10, 13 years ago, we were over 10% at some points. And if you look last year, we were at 1.2% at the K-8 and 0.6% at the high school. So we're doing a lot of different things rather than suspending. We know that suspensions don't work. And I think it's a product of our staff being on the same page with the PBIS, the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, and that's a great number to see. Both of those. All right, so that's about it for the data part of it. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'll have Meg do her part. So Meg, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share mine? Are you there, Meg?
Oh, join as the panelists.
Do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share mine?
Okay, now I'm here, for real. I was talking to myself. So Jason, if you could put your screen back up, because I didn't save that data in the DTS form. I have it in a really big, ugly spreadsheet.
Okay. That
isn't really conducive to everybody to look at. But let me go back to this unduplicated account. So I'm talking off of this first interim LCFF calculator, and I suppose I could share my screen. Share. Okay, so can you see that? The LCFF calculator kind of in this section. So when they talk about the unduplicated count, they do a 3-year rolling percentage. So they take this line here, the single year unduplicated count, and they have this 3-year rolling percentage that that's calculated that gets us to our unduplicated people account. So you see here in 23, 24, we did jump, because in 21, 22 and prior years, our percentage was lower. The annual percentage was lower. So we did jump from 54% to 62% in 23, 24. And then we jumped again in 24, 25 to 67%. And, we'll probably go up another percentage point next year. So in the beginning periods of the calculator, generally we try and keep this somewhat level, the single year, because it makes a difference in how we have to build our LCAP. And our LCAP is, we're meeting the supplemental concentration percentage in our LCAP, but being able to keep this kind of level helps in what we're building. But then at second interim, I'll take a look at the current data, the current student data, and see how it translates to the unduplicated count for next year, to see if this 25, 26 unduplicated number will go up. And then we look at it again when we're building the budget for next year to see if it goes up even more, so we can hopefully capture a better number. So does that kind of answer your question, Michael? Okay, I'm going to share my screen so Jason can share his. Oh, that thing. I have that thing. I thought you were going to show the other one. Sure. I don't care. Share. Okay. So this is the part of this. We have to do a new, an updated budget overview for parents. So at budget time, we do this whole budget overview for parents. We have to do a mid-year update. So this column here is where we were at adoption. Here's where we were. Here's where we are at the mid-year update. You'll notice the expenditure, or a lot of this stuff doesn't change a whole lot. So here the total LCFF funds are up by 200,000. And this is all based on the higher property taxes that we had when we closed the books. So first interim, we had higher property taxes. LCFF supplemental concentration, this number went down slightly because this is based on student demographics and then the value per student by grade span. And then all other state adjustments, this was up by about 85,000, and this was mostly prior year award carryover from the CTEIG grant, and then the addition of the Cal Hope grant from budget adoption to now. And then local funds, this is lower on donations, and then federal funds stayed about the same. So the projected revenue is up 278,000 to 10 million versus 9.8 million at adoption. And then on the expenditure side, so this we're looking at just total general fund expenditures. So they're up by about $250,000 as well. We had some staff updates. There was the psych MOU that I didn't have correct in the budget, and then the prior year cost carryovers that came with this part of this 85,000. The CTEIG costs that we carried over to this year from last year, and then an update to some of the operational costs. Some of the utilities were a little bit higher, and then the budget for the high needs students. So that would be the unduplicated students. So that stays the same, and this is actually a lot higher than what we're required to spend. So we're required to spend what our supplemental concentration dollars are, and so we're a little bit higher than that. And then this is the expenditures not in the LCAP. So most of the increases that we had are expenditures that are not in the LCAP. So the psych MOU isn't in the LCAP. Some of the staff updates that we made weren't LCAP paid employees. And the CTEIG grant is not part of the LCAP. So at adoption, we had 8.4 million expenditures not in the LCAP. At mid-year now, we have 8.7 million expenditures not in the LCAP. And then difference in projected funds and budgeted expenditures. Oh, so we have 101,000 at budget adoption. We had $101,000 more excess in what we were budgeting in excess of supplemental concentration dollars. And at mid-year, we're at about 103,000 more that we're budgeting to spend on the high needs students, which generate the supplemental concentration dollars. And I think that's it. Any questions?
No, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Meg.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Meg.
Yep.
So that was LCAP mid-year 8.3, 8.4, the CASP cohort report.
All right, so I did prepare a, I just added to the report that I've done over the past few years, so we can see how, the third graders have done, not third grade, because that was their first year, but how the various grades have done over time. So, like the sixth graders, let's just say, they went back from all the way to 2021, but this was the COVID year, which didn't really make a lot of sense. So really, if we start like in 2022, 23, 24, that's where you're going to get the most of the relevant data. So, I submitted this all to you. I don't really have any big takeaways. I think it's interesting, but I did want to show you you can do this also on your own. There's a new feature on the state reporting site. So if you go to the CDE and you go for the test results, and let's just say, let's click on the ELA portion of it. You can do it, and there's new tab over here is called Change Over Time. And then if we choose a grade, let's see, let's choose 11th grade. And then, so now they have this, 11th grade only did it 1 year in the last 3 years. That was a bad year, sorry. Let me choose 8th grade, sorry. So now you can see how the current year 8th graders did as 7th graders and 6th graders right on the state website here too. So it's a handy tool.
How do you access that?
You go to the CDE and you go to their assessment reporting, the state assessment reporting, type in Mendocino Unified, and then choose, I'm sorry, let me go back. Just choose either English language arts or math.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you do that, you click over here on the right, there's a tab called Change Over Time. And then you have to choose a grade.
So what is our math over time?
For the for this entire school?
Well, I mean, you can pick a grade.
Oh, sure. Let's do 8th grade. So for the 8th graders, they don't add it up like I did on my sheet, but and we had 46%-ish of the students meet the standard this year as 8th graders. We had about 46% last year and about 40% the year before. So this class, but this is the same class going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
What is this website again?
it's the state, it's the CDE.
Just CDE.
Well, it's the CASP reporting portion of it. You can access it from CDE, but it's actually the, if you just Google,
Yeah.
CDE, standardized testing results. But if anybody, do you want me to go over this, and we can go through the grade levels if you want, my report, so we don't have to keep entering.
Well, I guess I'm curious as to, you get these reports, the state puts a lot of emphasis on them. Are we using them at all to change our teaching?
Yeah, I know for a fact that both sites go through the test result. I mean, Tobin has 1 year of results as in 11th grade, but I know that Kim breaks down the raw scores and identifies, and they sit in groups and they see which students met the standards, which ones didn't, and what kind of services they're providing, which one they're getting, and they have conversations about that when the test. I mean, she can explain what she does. She's right there, but I know that she does that a lot.
I know that reading some of the commentary on some of the districts that did very well in terms of raising scores. I'm thinking of some of the news reports about Compton Unified, that they credited having teachers do a better job of teaching the state standards. And I wondered how we, think we do on that level.
I don't think we I don't know if you want to talk about it. I don't think we necessarily make a concerted effort to teach to the state standards,
Mm-hmm.
but why don't you explain what you do at that staff meeting, a couple staff meetings when you break down these scores?
So a couple of different things about it. Like the state test is good for a summative value.
Yeah.
The state's test is good at looking at the summative value. It's not very useful for day-to-day teaching in the classroom and looking at how to better your teaching over time. Also, since the pandemic, they have not done the breakdown section, so you just have an overall ELA score and an overall math score, which again is not as helpful as it used to be. They're starting to bring some of those things back. One of the things that they started with the reporting this year was to include a writing piece that gave you a little bit more specifics about how kids are actually doing with writing and giving specific scores. It's a little, I feel like they're trying out new things, so we'll see how it progresses. But I think that it's less useful for teaching day to day in the classroom. We typically do not teach to the test. That has been something that Mendocino has avoided since I've started working here. It feels like that it's not a teach to
Do
the
you equate
test.
teaching to the state standards the same as teaching to the test?
I think that they are similar. I think they're similar. Not entirely, I'll say, but similar. Like we have a lot of schools, you know, and this is something that we debate at staff meetings. You know, do we want to do a temporary bump in our scores? Do we want to teach that test? We can spend months on how to give the test. For our third graders, for example, just navigating the computer system is prohibitive. And so do we want to focus on that, or do we want to focus on what we feel like is educationally beneficial to the students? Now, that being said, there are definitely areas that we can work on to work toward the state standards. One of the things that we've been working on is building back our, we call them priority standards. We had narrowed it down through the pandemic to focus on what exactly do we need students to know. We have this limited amount of time with them. And we're working on building that back into a broader, you know, now we have them for full time, where areas we can work. I will say that the curriculum we have is very dedicated to the state standards. And we're working on aligning that. We have some teachers who are still wanting to or think they're not as, the curriculum is not in itself everything that they feel like students need to know. And so we have been working to kind of align teachers to be solid on teaching it. So if we have Bridges, for example, K-5 in math, ensuring that everyone is teaching the Bridges curriculum and it is aligned with the state standards. So I think that's a complicated question, and I think that there are things that we can work on. In my mind, writing is an area that I feel like we need to work on at the K, and we've started kind of doing that as a group and learning how we can do that better. How can we teach that standard, the California standards of writing, better?
But our ELA scores are much better than our math scores. So
Yes.
I'm concerned that
It's been true for
Well, no,
yeah.
I'm not saying that, but to me, you know, and I think one year we said we were going to focus on math, you know, and I want to, you know, I guess I'm trying to break this down into things that maybe everybody can understand. I mean, let's say, you know, in you know, third or fifth grade, you've got a standard that is how fluid you should be on the multiplication table, right? Is that a possible standard, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fluency of math facts, which the definition of fluency has changed over time as well. Not necessarily focused on time test as maybe we had when we grew up, but fluency of solving the problems. But yes, I get where you're going with it. Yeah.
So I mean, and you talked about the things that you as a staff agreed were the important things for that grade level. And so, you know, let's say that the state standards cover hundreds of items.
Right.
Right. There are hundreds of standards for grade 5 math.
Correct.
And you're going to focus on 10, right? And those 10 may help people pass that test or may not help them pass the test, right? Because there are still 90 that are not going to do.
Correct.
So how do you then take the results on the math side and say, you know, we're constantly performing under 40%. How do we raise that 10 points? You know, and is that valid? Is that something we should be doing?
I think that it is something that we want to watch and we want to continue to work on. More importantly to me, are we presenting students who can pass the kind of grade level math, and when they get to high school, are they able to engage in the high school level math? Take the AP test if they want to, be able to accelerate in the math program, at that point. We've had debates about, are there just wording things that are making it difficult for students to do better in the math portion of the test, because either our curriculum is wording it differently or then the state test is wording it, and so they're not sure what that question is actually asking. So we are having those discussions, and again, that's kind of the debate that we're having of teaching to the test. Could we just teach to the test and teach to those wordings, or is it better to stick with the curriculum that we have and that we're using? I definitely think math is an area we can work on. We have definitely, as you mentioned, had it be our focus over the years of our PLC meetings. I think we still have work to do there. I also would love to see what would happen if all K-5 teachers were to use the Bridges, curriculum religiously, if that would make a change in it,
And what are the obstacles to making something like that happen?
I think it is about, again, vision and personal passion, and maybe what you feel might be the best way to teach students math. Might be different from what the curriculum is presenting. Because I think one of the things that we all know as educators, no one curriculum is the end all be all, is the kind of silver bullet to it. And so I think it gets a little mushy when people start supplementing, and that kind of turns into maybe creating your own math curriculum around it. And I wonder how much that has an effect on this, And so those are things we're working on. Yeah.
And I think the issue of not being able to understand the question as it's phrased in the state test, because that's not the language that's used when we're teaching that area, is troublesome to me. I get the concept, and I certainly have picked up math books and said, what are they really saying? Because I was, learn it, think about it differently.
Yeah.
But if you know that the test is going to be coming from a certain direction, I don't think it's teaching the test to say this is what to expect. I think teaching the test is trying to predict the exact questions. But if you don't understand the vocabulary that the state test is going to be using, you're going to drop way down in your score, because that's the first important thing, is to understand the question.
Right, and I'm not saying that is the only thing.
No, I know.
That is something that we've debated as a staff. So.
Well, I don't know, Jason, whether you think this is an area that the board should be at all involved in, but it seems to me that if we're going to get these results year after year, and we keep saying we want to improve our scores, especially in math, and we don't have a common understanding of what we should expect our teachers to be doing in terms of curriculum. It's no surprise to me that we don't make any progress.
Well, what was that last line you said?
Yeah.
What's that?
That our teachers don't what?
If our teachers don't have a common understanding of how to teach the subject, of how to prepare students, if their way of teaching math actually inhibits them performing well on the test, I think that's a problem.
It's only a problem, though, to the extent that we care about the state testing numbers to begin with, and care about teaching our students to do well on the tests, which.
But I think part of that.
Not sure we should spend too much time on.
I'm not saying we spend too much time on it, but it seems to me that a lot of things, and math strikes me as a particular one. Self-confidence and joy of learning are very important at any age, but especially in these critical middle school years to me. And it's very easy to get discouraged when you take a test and you say, I'm not meeting, I'm not even getting to the, met expectations level of the test. And so I'm not good at math. And I think a lot of people have that feeling because, you know, they expect the state test to say something different than their grade or whatever. The same way that, you know, an SAT score or PSAT score ranks them in a way that is different than you know, just getting an A in your math class. I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Do you think a lot of K-5 or K-8 students are aware of their testing scores? Is that what you're saying, and that they feel badly about them?
Well, maybe not. Maybe I assume they get them.
I think their parents get
Their
them.
parents get them in the mail.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's a conversation that most parents have with their kids.
Oh, well, I guess
But-
that's a shame too.
Maybe. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess it's exasperating to think that we spend on a state level hundreds of millions of dollars developing standards, then we test people on these standards, and we don't really care if they do well or not because, you know, it's all junk. I mean, that's the impression I get. Why do we have Jason come up here and give us the results if we don't really care about, you know, that the student actually understands the question when they get it? You know, so I don't know. Maybe you don't want the board to be involved in these kinds of issues, but
It's fine with me.
But, you know,
it's also it's a state issue too. I mean, there's 35% of California students met the standard in math and 47% at ELA. So I mean, we're very normal. We're also by far the highest achieving district in the county. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I know that they spend time, our principals and teachers spend time identifying standards and trying to get, you know, all teaching the same way. And here we go. Tobin wants a statement here too, but I just think that it's the same age-old argument. There are other ways to measure success too, you know, and so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I started giving this report. I certainly don't have to give it, but
Well,
I think it's good information.
and I'm not saying the tests are useless. They are one piece of data about one day in that kid's life, and I think they're useful at a very high level. And it's, you know, I look at it and compare them to the state numbers and see that we're exceeding those, and I feel like, okay, you know, no red flags there. I find them interesting, sort of. You know, every once in a while, very few of them are statistically significant. You know, you have different grades that do better than other grades throughout time. So to me, it's not that they're completely useless, but we have to do it, and it's a piece of data, but nothing I think we should spend too much time worrying about. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I can just give you, you know, I think at the high school level, we are standards driven. And those standards are different depending on the classes. CTE classes have their own set of standards. Those are not addressed on state testing. But most of our English and math classes are directly addressing those standards. Their grade books are set up as those with those standards, as are some of the K-8 grade books. We have college classes on campus, so those are actually using the predetermined college curriculum for those classes. We have AP classes. That's a predetermined AP curriculum. Those AP classes teach to the test. Do the standard English and math classes teach the test? We do not practice the test, but we are teaching the standards that should be reflected on the test. Teaching to the test, in my definition, would be you would do the interim assessments, you'd actually practice it, and you'd sit down and they'd go through the motions of doing that. We don't do that, and our kids still do pretty darn well on the tests. As far as is there something to be gained, I remember in the early 2000s, maybe 2008, somewhere in there, you asked a question about why were the chem scores so low. And the physics scores were great, and the chemistry teacher at the time said, well, I could adjust which was me, but I could adjust and teach to the standards, right? And so, because that was a time where you just did whatever you wanted, right? That was what you did back in the old MUSD days. You taught what you were passionate about. But the thing is, there's a lot you can teach, and even in the standards, there's more than you can cover.
Right.
So my attitude about it, like after that, I did shift it, and we got a big bump, you know, just from that. I don't think that exists anymore because we've already done that. We've picked out our critical standards, that we feel like we should address. And we have measures, this is something that's going to endure, this is something that you need for the next level, this is something that, there's like a metric you can use to pick those critical standards. So I think at the high school, a lot of our teachers, not 100% fidelity, but a lot of them have done that work. So there's not a big bump to be gained by saying, oh, we should focus on the standards. We're already doing that to the point where we've gotten that bump. Mm-hmm. So now it comes down to strategies, remediation, intervention, bringing, everything's getting more bimodal with the scores, I think, nationally. How do we bring that lower group up a little bit more so that instead of like below, they're like approaching? That to me would be where you'd want to look, is how do you bring this lower group of scores up? I think that's where there's, gains to be had, which is a valuable thing to look into.
I mean, I guess it's the thing that what Kim said that disturbed me the most, was that it's okay if a student doesn't understand the question, and I guess I can't buy that. I think that if we know that the question is going to be asked and half of our students won't even understand the question because of the way we teach math, I think we're teaching math wrong.
Yeah, I do not have any input for you on that.
No,
I have not read the questions, and I don't know if our math teachers have. I mean, there are practice tests out there they could look at and say, oh, we call it division and they call it the inverse of multiplication or something. I don't know.
And I also feel like that was one thing that I said that we debated, not that we were okay with that as being clamped onto, and it's not a complete picture of what the test scores are or what is happening.
I accept that. No, I didn't mean to be that critical. It's just that, as board members, we hardly ever get to talk about curricular issues. And, this is sort of our annual review, and it always strikes me that this disparity between our math and English scores, it's not because math is harder or less interesting than English. To me, I think that there's just as much natural enthusiasm for math as there is for English, but somehow we haven't figured out the code that we need to have to make it work so that people are successful. And as the results show that we're not communicating enough of how to do that, of breaking down the question, to me.
I have some different questions. Longitudinally, do you have some idea of what's happened in terms of recovery from COVID year at this point?
I think that without any, diving into any numbers or anything, I feel like we are still seeing effects of it. I think one of the hardest things is not curricular academic, it's behavior and social emotional, which affects everything. If a kid is not present to learn, it doesn't matter how it's being taught or what is being taught. And that is a very real, I think that's a very real dynamic. The other thing, looking at the unduplicated numbers that have increased is also something else that plays into it. Our students are needing more resources. Our families are needing more resources. So I don't have any numbers for you or anything, just a feeling of what I'm seeing on campus and what I'm hearing from teachers on how sometimes it's very challenging or where they are, that we're still working through that. There was also an interesting thing on NPR this last week about it, showing national numbers saying that we're still working to.
And I have the sense that it would be more difficult to recover if you had kindergarten that year than if you had fourth grade, and more difficult to recover from fourth grade than if you had eighth grade that year. I'm seeing a child who was in kindergarten that year who's in fourth grade and can't count by twos. because they weren't playing with things. They didn't have blocks and things to count at home.
I would agree with that. I think one of the things that I can say about the barrier between ELA and math is that way that it's definitely more difficult to teach math over screens, and I think we saw a bigger hit with that with students. So to your point, yes.
And a different question I have is I'm just wondering, K-12, are teachers using Khan Academy at all, or are very many students accessing that kind of thing?
I think that I know that in our middle school math, 7th and 8th grade math, it can be used as a supplement or to help extend a student's learning or support them at home. But I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, it is a tool that's accessible, or variations of that sort of tool are accessible. Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, like, for example, our current seniors, last year's testers, scored extremely high on ELA, but we also know that people that have resources weren't impacted as much by COVID as people that didn't have resources. So I think that's playing out definitely here, and it's making that bimodal distribution even more. So again, I think the impact is looking at how do you raise that lower group up, because that group is still, I think, challenged to figure out how to be successful, social emotionally as well as academic. It's all combined together.
Thank you.
All right. Any further comments, questions, discussion? That was it. Future agenda items, I believe, is our last piece. Any additions or changes to item 9? Okay. Then we are adjourned. Thank you all.